Hola, buenos dias. Hi, good morning. My name is Ania Bundis, and I'm a fourth year student at San Jose State University, majoring in Chicano-Chicana studies with a minor in sociology. I initially came in with sociology as my major, but I quickly changed, or not too quickly, but once I found out about CCS and I started to take classes, I switched. I made the switch, and most of it I would say is because of what I was shared that is your theme today, which is about counter storytelling and just making spaces um, for just for different voices to be heard that are usually pushed to the margins. And I know that's something that you hear a lot, but when you really see it in action and you're able to bring it into your home, that's when it really it really brings life to it. I actually have a few things that I can share with you today, so I'll get up really quickly and come back. Um, so in CCS, I was able to delve into kind of like the arts, which I at first was like, oh, I'm not an artist, I'm not good at drawing, I'm not good at painting, or like, you need certain requirements to be an artist. And I think that's a lot of things that we hear a lot, that you need like certain types of capital, I would say, or just to like present yourself in a certain way in order for people to acknowledge you in different spaces. And CCS, what it really did for me was validate that we all have a lot of different types of knowledge, and not just like, oh, your form of knowledge is less and it should be valued like either way. No, it's like, how do we shift our perspective to really see the richness and the depth of everything that we carry with us, and that our stories really are truly beautiful, and carry so many lessons, carry so many like teachings, carry a lot of beautiful things for us to experience with one another. And it just gives us a better understanding of our cultures, our traditions, our values. And so when I was in CCS, I was able to do a couple of different paintings and things. And it even like expanded into my other classes. For example, I took a dance class, and I decided to do like a bilingual kind of like thing and a piece of art. And for me, I really love this because it felt, well, the stairs kind of to me felt like when I'm in Mexico, kind of like when you go up and down the different spaces, at least in the little pueblo that one of my tias is from. And I just imagine like seeing all the greenery and how it's like growing. And so this really is about like how to sanar y alimentar el jardín dentro de mí, how to cultivate and grow the garden within me. And I would say that CCS professors really focus on that, and seeing how do we nurture our students. And I think one of the ways is to always know that your students and everyone around you has something to share and to teach you, that no matter how much you learn in an academic space, the world around you in these like non-traditional academic, like non-academic, non-traditional spaces of learning, they can offer you so many things. And another thing was kind of like how I bring in my familia, and how who are the people that we carry with us, and what is it that we carry from them like with us. And I actually am not able to be with you all in real time, and I decided to do a video because I'm going to go be visiting my grandma in Mexico. And my grandfather recently passed away in December, so very shortly ago, about a month ago or less. And this piece was actually one that I did in CCS, and it has so much value even more now. And it's kind of like a tree that carries the people with me and what I carry from them. And my grandpa is that I carry his childlike spirit and his laughter. And the big thing that we talk about is freedom dreaming, freedom being. And it's something that I learned first and carry from my class with Marcos Pizarro. So, to kind of to go into what I was asked to share today too, There's an assignment, that I did in Marcos Pizarro's class when I was there as a student. I now am a TA in his class, and that transition has also been um, one that I'm very grateful for, and that has given me so much and allowed me to give back. But once again, it's all about reciprocity. How do you reciprocate what's given to you, and knowing that you also have to give back to your students and your community. You can't just we can't just expect like to receive things from one another and walk into a space and be like, teach me. We also have to give. How do we give from ourselves, and receive from other people? And I think it's one of the really important things that I learned from Marcos, from Profe Pizarro, which is how do you create a space where people feel safe, comfortable, eager, and excited to share with one another, and what's needed in a space in order to receive these things from students. And I think one of them first is being flexible to change. Knowing that you might have a certain set of expectations for your class, you might have a certain idea of what you want students to take away, but it's okay to embrace that might change, and that sometimes it needs to change to adjust to the needs of the students. Not every class is different. I mean, not every class is the same. Every class is different. Making a space where you set certain values for how you're going to share with each other, how we carry those things with each other, making space that we make time to reflect on the past things. So if anyone is holding feelings, how do we allow students to express that? I really liked the way that we sat in a circle, because you really get to see every person, and every person feels seen, both physically and also just in the way of like everyone feels heard. Another thing that even happened in our class, which we share with each other, is that sometimes we can say something and we don't, say it with the intention of like, our intention may be different, but a student or the professor might not receive it in that way. So how do we set boundaries in our class of like, if someone doesn't want to share something or they're not ready to share something, allowing for students to say no to something, and it can also lead to more growth afterwards, because that in itself is like nurturing the sense of safety. But yeah, and I think beyond that, the other thing would be allowing students to just be their authentic, creative selves. And when I say creative, it doesn't have to like specifically be how I was sharing that, I delved into like the arts more in CCS. I did it kind of through like creating things like this, where, I use my fingerprints to make art because, maybe I'm not so good at drawing. Or, I play around with yarn in my yarn painting with Doctora Maria Cruz. And I think it's just letting students, nurturing that kid-like sense, where I think as we grow older, sometimes in school we can say that, oh, I expect this certain submission from you, and I have these set requirements. And I think it's important to have guidelines, to have things to, produce a certain piece of this, like a writing piece, or but to also give some room for play, because I think as kids we really focus on like play, as in like joy and excitement for what we do. And it's important to continue to know that in college and beyond, play is a big thing, where it really allows us to bring in our stories and who we are as people. I think for me, one of the big things has been sharing about my culture, but most specifically about my family members, because they truly, I feel like, I'm not so good at taking compliments, but when I do get a compliment, I always make sure to tell people that I'm like, like a vessel who is vicariously sharing the things that have been shared with me. And, I'm kind of, receiving things from people, and then it goes through my lens, and then that's when I make something. So I really want to honor those people. And today I wanted to share a poem actually. So I had encouraged one of my friends. She was really excited to to submit something to Eastside Magazine, and she did. And she's in the edition before this, which is the pink one. Um, but I was really inspired by her, and I decided to kind of take my own advice and do it myself as well. And so I submitted a poem for this, and it's also been really nice to be. I think before this, I also will share a little bit about the Culture Counts reading series. So Jonathan Gomez is most likely somewhere in this facilitation, whether it's a Zoom or an in-person thing. But he has really done so much for our community, both in San Jose State and San Jose beyond. I'm really grateful to have been invited into the Culture Counts reading series and to be able to bring in friends as well, because I think they really want to cultivate that sense of, oh, we're not here to share to impress, we're here to share, to experience, and to hold one another and to support one another and celebrate each other. The things that we create shouldn't just be, like with the expectation of like, oh, this has to be good. How will people, react to this? It should be, I'm gonna show you who I am, and my hope is that you can help me celebrate these parts of myself, and also, give me feedback to grow. And so with that, a piece that I actually made, and this was born from an assignment in Profe Pizarro's class when I was in his CCS 185 class. And we were talking about culturally sustaining pedagogies and how do we bring in and kind of nurture the sharing and the relations that people have with their culture in the classroom. And for me, it was really important to write this poem in Spanish. It's called Cedrón, and I describe it really briefly. I'll read it out. So the way that I describe this poem is that, more than a poem actually, it is a love letter to the cultural wealth of our Eastside community and ancestors, connecting us across time and regions. I bring in my grandmother to celebrate loved ones who teach us that care, love, and comprehension are the nourishing elements to harvest a more just and loving future. And this poem was actually written in Spanish, so I call it Una Carta de Amor, which is a love letter. And that to me has really made it more personal. And yeah, so I'll go ahead and share it. And I'm actually going to read it both ways. So I'll read it first in English in case someone doesn't speak Spanish here. That way, when I'm reading it in Spanish, you can at least have a background understanding of it. So in English, this is a translated one that came afterwards. In my grandmother's house, there is a garden, a place where magic is cultivated. A plant named Cedrón grows with love to nourish our souls. My grandmother cultivates it, dries it, and prepares it, traveling for the ranch to the door of my home. While she boils the water, preparing a tea, my grandmother tells stories of her past and present. I drink the tea as I listen to her voice, a melody of her wisdom. My grandmother reminds me that we must nourish body and soul in order to heal. Her stories cure wounds of a country neglecting to see our beauty. With each cup of Cedrón, I learn more about our culture, how we care for, love, and protect one another. I learn to value our cultural wealth, what others did not value in you and I. My grandmother's values flow through my veins. I am love and hope. We are the magic of the garden. Lulled by the warmth of the sun, I ask Mother Nature, forgive the pain we have inflicted on you. I hope we can heal our scars together. I dream of rivers and green landscapes, planting a future with roots in the minds of our ancestors. Beloved grandmother, thank you for nourishing the magic in me. Thank you for loving and protecting our community. So, with that, I'll go ahead and read the Spanish one and then say a little bit of things about it. Okay, so in Spanish, this is the original version. It is, en la casa de mi abuela hay un jardín y ahí se cultiva la magia. Una plantita llamada cedrón que con amor crece para alimentar nuestra alma. Mi abuela la cultiva, la seca y la prepara, viajando del rancho hasta la puerta de mi casa. Mientras hierve el agua, preparando un té, me cuenta historias del pasado y su presente. Bebo el té mientras escucho su voz, una melodía de nuestra sabiduría. Mi abuela me recuerda que debemos alimentar alma y cuerpo para poder sanar. Sus historias curan heridas de un país, negando a saber nuestra belleza. Con cada taza de cedrón aprendo a valorar, o aprendo más sobre mí, cultura, cómo nos cuidamos, nos amamos y nos protegemos. Aprendo a valorar nuestra riqueza cultural, lo que otros no valoraron en ti y en mí. Los valores de mi abuela fluyen por mis venas. Soy amor y esperanza. Somos la magia del jardín. Arrullada por la calidez del sol, le pido a nuestra madre naturaleza, perdona el dolor que te hemos causado. Espero sanar juntas nuestras cicatrices. Sueño con ríos y paisajes verdes, sembrando un futuro con raíces en la mente de nuestros ancestros. Querida abuela, gracias por alimentar la magia en mí. Gracias por amar y proteger nuestra comunidad. All right, thank you. And so that poem was really born out of actually a moment that I shared with both my grandparents, my grandfather who passed away recently, and her. And there's actually a lot of CCS moments intertwined in here. When a new one is me being able to share this in the Culture Counts reading series, and just the love and that I've received, especially from one new friend that I made there, and the way that it resonated to her grandma. And I think that's a really important thing, that in CCS, when we share something, there's this beauty that other people begin to relate to it, and it begins to really validate the capacity for love, the values that we hold, our traditions, and the different, cultural capitals that we share. In this poem, a big one is familial capital for me. And it's just a really validating, wholesome experience that is not only for yourself, but it's for your friends, for your community, or even like a stranger who can fall upon this and, experience something from it. I was doing my yarn painting, the one I recently shared, this one, and this actually carries a lot of stories about las mujeres en Mexico and how my grandmother witnessed femicides there as well, and the things that she did to protect her own daughters and protect their hearts, which is why I labeled my loteria card La Sanación. And it's still a topic that can be emotional for me. But it's also really, really healing at the same time to share these things. And I think that's what CCS really encompasses for me. It's this place where I can heal and continue to grow, and every time it surprises me with these unexpected ways of growth. And so I got to interview my grandparents, and I actually have it recorded, so it's also now a beautiful way for me to still hear my grandfather's voice for like 2 hours as he talks and tells stories of his childhood in Mexico with my grandma. And now I get to, put this as our own testimony and say how es importante tener nuestros testimonios. It's important that our testimonies are recorded. And that's something I learned from Rosana Alvarez when I was in her gender and sexualities class, which just really talked about the way that, as Chicanas, it's important that we recognize where we have recorded our testimonies, and how it's important that they continue to be shared, because overall they have so much to tell us about where we've been, where we're going. So I'm just very grateful to have been able to share some of my experiences today with you, even if it's in video form, rather than being here and speaking with you guys in real time. But I, I hope to hear back from how this went. Please do reach out and let me know, because as I said, right now it's kind of just like me speaking towards the camera, speaking to you all. But I think one of the most, how would you say? There's like a word I'm looking for. One of the things that I value the most, that is more gifting to me. There we go. One of the things that is more gifting to me is, when I hear back from people. So I'll be, reaching out to Gomez and seeing how today went for you all. But I think the last thing for me to say is just to continue to learn alongside youth, alongside everyone, but also the youth, because we need to remind them that, or we need the reminders ourselves that our voices are important, that they matter, and that someone is there to listen. So thank you.